Yesterday you had equations that were in the form where you're taking the variable, you're multiplying or dividing by something, and then you're adding or subtracting something. Today it's a little different. We're going to look at problems that have grouping. And by grouping, I mean problems that look like this, or problems that look like this. Okay. So if you remember back when we were doing our expressions unit, remember how we talked about how this fraction division bar can be grouping? And obviously, we already know that parentheses can be grouping too. Now, when you have grouping in the equation, it's going to change how you approach it. So let me show you, and we'll do an example with each of those so that you can see. So let's start with the first one here. Oh, I need to take attendance too. I'll do that after the lesson. Clearly there's a few people out today. Okay. Now, back when we did the cover-up method a few days ago, I showed you to cover up what was grouped with your variable. So in this case, we would cover up this portion and do the inverse operation. The opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. Okay? Well, that's basically what we're going to do here. We're going to, instead of adding or subtracting first like we did yesterday, we're going to multiply or divide first. And we can use that cover-up method to help guide us, okay? So I would cover up what was grouped. I would say, oh, now we're dividing by 4 here. The opposite or the inverse operation here would be to multiply by 4. So I would multiply by 4 here and here. So today, in this form, we will multiply and divide first. Now 4 divided by 4, okay, just cancels out because it's 1 over, it becomes 1, and it's not necessary to write that down. And what you're left with is k plus 16. So I have k plus 16 is equal to 32. Now the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to undo our addition or subtraction. So the opposite or the inverse operation for adding 16 will be to subtract 16. 16 minus 16 is just 0, so that cancels out. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And what I'm left with is k is equal to 16. Okay. So let me just write the steps down real quick so we can remember. We multiplied or divided first. Okay, and then we add or subtract. So we're basically going backwards or doing the steps opposite of what we did yesterday. Because yesterday we added or subtracted first and then multiplied and divided. Today we're multiplying and dividing and then adding and subtracting. And just like I showed you yesterday, I'm going to take the original equation and plug in my variable here. So this is going to be 16 plus 16 divided by 4 is 8. 32 divided by 4 is 8. And yes, 8 is equal to 8. We know that that's the correct solution. Okay, let me show you let me show you now how to solve ones that have grouping, or like the parenthesis type grouping. So here's another example. All right. I always do my balance line. Now, just like we did above, we're going to multiply or divide first. So I'm going to use my cover-up method here to help me. I'm going to cover up what's grouped with my variable. Now, you're multiplying by -3. The inverse operation would be to divide by -3. So I'm going to divide by -3 here, divide by -3 here. -3 divided by -3 is just 1. 0 divided by -3 will be 0. All right, let's take a look at this one now. We just have one step left. We need to add or subtract. So if you're subtracting 2, the inverse operation would be to add 2, which makes sense. -2 plus 2 is just 0, so that cancels out. And you're left with x is equal to 2. Then I'm going to go back in and make sure that I did it correctly by plugging in 2. Yeah, we're good. We know that 2 is the correct solution. Okay. So let me write down the steps, and then I'll give you some practice ones to try. So when you're looking at a problem, you need to decide, is there grouping in it, or is there no grouping in it? Because you approach those differently. So the first thing we do is we put our balance line. Then we multiply or divide. Step 3, we add or subtract. And then step 4, we check our answer. All right, you guys, let's do a little bit of practice here. I'm just going to give you 2 practice problems, one in each form, or one with each type of grouping, and we'll just make sure we're good before we start our homework for tonight. All right, give them a try. And I'm going to take attendance while you guys are working on that. No Connor today? No Malia today? I'm just going to say them out if I think they're absent, just so that if they're here and I don't see them, I'll know. Derwin? Adrian? Trinity? Cameron? Nate? Brianna? How'd you guys do on this? Did you finish? Here, let me just go through it real quick to make sure we're good. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. I get m minus 5. I'm getting my colors mixed up. M minus 5 is equal to, that kind of looks cool, 7. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And I get that m is equal to 12. I'm going to check it. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so that first one, m is 12. So far, so good? Yeah. Okay. Here, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. And I'm left with x plus 7 is equal to negative 6. Subtract 7 from both sides. And I get that x is equal to, it looks like a 1, negative 13. Is that what you guys got? Yeah. Great. Yep, we're good. Okay, I know you guys would rather not show your work, but we have 30 minutes, 25 minutes left of class. I think you guys can handle showing work for 6 problems, right? No. And not to mention, like, you on a test, you can't get proficiency without showing your steps. Okay? Even if you're right every single time, I can only give you approaching unless you show your work. Okay? So show your work. I need to, like, tattoo it on my forehead. Show your work. Show your work. All right. Those of you that are at home today, we missed you. Make sure that you do your homework on paper and show your work, and I'll be collecting it on Monday.